Spirit Hour.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Edible Spirit Hour. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. This is a show dedicated to healers and healing and making all of this stuff that all of us are doing all the time, just like giving it some air and some light, making it a little more normal by not just trying to normalize it, by just being open about what we're doing to heal ourselves and others. It's a big part of the Edible Spirit practice that we use doing readings, that, you learn how to heal yourself so that you can heal others. You learn how to grow your light so that you can inspire that growth in others. Big old circle jerk daisy chain of healing and love and awesomeness. Ooh, the spirits are here tonight. So we have a wonderful guest for you tonight, a really fun guest who we haven't caught up with in a little while. So we're gonna bring in Brandon Kneefel in a little while. Very excited about that. But we'd like to start the show with the F Me update. Yeah, we're going to start with astrology this week, just to share a little bit about what's going on with you guys. Maybe you know this, hopefully you know this, but Mercury is retrograde until November 3rd. It's in Scorpio, so Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio right now until the 27th, and then it goes into Libra. So we're also in Scorpio season. That's the biggest part of the F Me update. Scorpio Sun right here. The sun has moved into Scorpio, I believe, as of the 22nd, and spooky season, right? Because Scorpio is the sign that rules change and transformation and death and sex and power and using power to change and healing, because it's also connected to like the spiritual warrior or just the warrior archetype in general, as is Aries kind of, but because both of those are ruled by Mars. So, but when you think Scorpio, think staring into the darkness until you see some light, right? Or just staring into the darkness because it looks fucking cool. And then you stare so long and so hard that truth emerges. Gas. Mercury retrograde in Scorpio is doing this interesting thing. I'm just going to show you one little chart, which is this of the, this would be the full moon chart, because there's a full moon on Halloween. There's a full moon on the 31st. While the sun is in Scorpio, it's a full moon in Taurus, which is opposite Scorpio. So it's going to be a great night to stay in. Isn't every night these days? It's going to be a great night to stay in and feel your bones and feel your oats, because there's like a very sensitization thing that happens, just like a very subjective experience during a Taurus full moon. But why we show you this chart is to just show you how intense these lines are on the chart. Very simple chart with a lot of complexity in it. I hope you can see my arrow, but you see how there's one line going right through the middle? That's the full moon. Sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus. And then over here is what I'm also doubly, triply interested in. So this is Mercury retrograde over here. I wonder, can you see this? This is Mercury retrograde. Hi, everyone. Hi, Red Fam. Oh, yeah, you can see my arrows. Okay, great. So this is Mercury retrograde over here, close to the sun. That's in Libra. Because by the time we get to the 31st, it will be in Libra. It's still in Scorpio right now, closing on these moments. But this is the square to Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, big conjunction, era defining, epic defining stuff in Capricorn, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter. And then this is Mars retrograde over here. So basically, a square is the kind of alignment that begs for, it creates a tension and it begs for some kind of resolution. So long story short, super simple, super joyful here. We're basically rocking whatever we're learning from this Mercury retrograde by looking into the darkness and being willing to change and or, be reborn. change or die and or be reborn. And that's kind of what we're going through right now in this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio moment, where it's like deep inner fears come up, deep bursts of anxiety, deep feelings of insecurity or threat, or just shadowy stuff, scary stuff that comes up because Mercury is churning it up so that we can look at it. Mars is doing the same thing in terms of our energy and our vitality and what we want and how we go and get what we want. We've talked about that on other episodes. But the important thing about this is that both of these things are in direct conflict with these planets here that are doing their conjunction thing, this epical era-defining alignment of, excuse me, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. So if you think of that as the portion of the chart that's like the low-key, high-key destruction of society so that new stuff can be reborn, this Mercury is showing us, is churning up what our fears are based on all of the stuff that we've been going through. And after the 27th, it dips back into Libra and it starts plumbing. Instead of those fears or those deep, dark secrets, it starts looking for solutions, looking for Libran, harmonious, diplomatic solutions. So whereas the churning of Scorpio churns up all the fears, the churning of Libra churns up potential ideas. None of them are going to fucking work probably until November 3rd, because we're talking about 6 days between the 27th and the 3rd. But it's just a different kind of churning. And then once we get to the 3rd, we can apply some of those solutions that Mercury retrograde in Libra has turned up to some of these fears that we've experienced because of Mercury retrograde in Scorpio that we're understanding more differently. And then all of that is squaring this big conjunction that is like, what the fuck is going on in the world? So whatever you're doing, whatever you need to do, however you're healing, however you're treating yourself, however you're treating others, we just encourage you, based on this astrology, to notice the fears that come up between now and the 27th. Notice how solutions seem to emerge, or potential sort of potential approaches to facing those fears, or like that question of what do I do with all this starts to show up. It just changes after the 27th. Once the 3rd comes, we get this kind of forward motion of like, okay, this is what we can do now once Mercury goes direct. But then it's not until November 13th that all of this energy and mojo really starts moving forward, when Mars goes direct and we get a little more pep in our step. So vis-a-vis all of this, I just want to share with you, angels. 2 things. We're going to bring Brandon in just a minute. If you know you want a reading from yours truly or from Brandon and you're watching on YouTube, please find your way into the Zoom room. You can find your way into the Zoom room through EdibleSpirit.com or through Instagram at EdibleSpirit, where we have links to both of those Zoom rooms. Okay, and that's how you get a reading if you want one, or how you ask a question if you want to ask one. So now we're going to share this one other thing, which is just to say our episode of That's So Retrograde is up. So if you love that show, go check us out. We're talking about all of this Mercury, Mars shenanigans, and the full moon in depth with stuff about rituals. And, we just love working with those ladies. And then last, but especially not least, we're going to just share. What else can we share? We're going to share. Oh, this is pretty cute. This is a little, these are delicata squash that we made this week that are cut in half. So this was 3 of them. They're kind of long, cut in half with the seeds scooped out. And then normally I like to cut them in rings and kind of make them like chips almost, cut them really thin. And you have to roast them on one side and then flip them and roast them on the other side after tossing with olive oil, garlic powder, chili powder, whatever kind of dry spices you have on hand, salt and pepper. But in this case, we actually left them kind of as boats and may have cooked chicken wings on top of them, but that's another story. In addition to this yumminess, we have just this adorableness today from the cider world. Oh my God, fresh. That was really cute. Oh wait, no, that wasn't what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you this one. Oh, look, this is a cider press. Pretty exciting to see a cider press in action. Scorpio. Cider press. Oh my God, it's so autumnal. And then last but not least, we're gonna we made these the other day. Okay, so this is, you know, a little like semi-homemade style affair. We just had a box of Funfetti on hand, so made up some Funfetti cupcakes, but then had this like, you know, ultra processed, super sugary, like fake cream cheese icing that we took this hand churned, fresh, blueberry laced goat cheese. Oh my God, that I found at a farm right near here. And just mix that up with the icing. And it was really fucking good. Because, you know, the ultra processed icing, which is there for a rainy day, for like an emergency, can be too sweet. And I don't really like cream cheese that much, which is why I bought the kind of like fake cream cheese icing. What's in there that's not cream cheese? Couldn't tell you. But we compensated, we balanced out with this delightful, nutritious, healthy goat cheese that had blueberries dotted all throughout it. Imagine that. So terribly excited to bring in Brandon and chat it out. We're gonna keep moving on. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, hi Sue, holler. Okay, let's bring Brandon in. Hi.
Oh my gosh!
Hi, Gorge.
How are you?
Great, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Oh my gosh, I love your lightning bolt and
Thank you.
oh my gosh. Face is here. It's so nice, babe. Okay, well, welcome to the Edible Spirit Hour. Thank you for joining us for this.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like we have so much to catch up on because
I know.
I was just doing the math and I'm pretty sure our last gathering was right before lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, like the beginning of the year.
I'm pretty, like I was there not very long at all. And there we go. It was like, whoa. It was like I went to a couple, but not like social gatherings, you know.
Right, exactly.
That was just all of us kind of rolling up to your house and having a very mystical moment together.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
That was very healing. So like I said, I mean, there's so much stuff going on with you. The first thing we always like to ask people is, how are you healing? And that is up to you to share with us. What are you doing for yourself right now? What are you doing for others?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you all sorts of other questions, but just really, how do you respond to that? How are you healing?
So I guess, you know, the work we do, a lot of times it's like, you can't heal in a vacuum. So it's like I can get better and then go back out into the world and be like, I'm spiritually feeling gross. So a lot of it has been more of holding space for people to really be like, you know what? I'm a soul sovereign. I can have my own soul sovereignty. And there's been so much disappointment in the world regarding these people or that people that I'm on this tangent right now where it's like, fire your heroes, fire your gurus, you know, turn to your higher power. And that's what the world is telling us. Like, no one's going to get it right for you. Like, that's up to you.
Like a spiritual elimination diet, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Everything is removed.
Exactly. I mean, isn't that like what, you know, Pluto and Saturn are doing to us anyways?
100%. It's that enforced change and those hard lessons that you don't necessarily want to learn. And then I look at Jupiter with a little stink eye being like, are you here to bestow blessings or are you here to just blow everything up?
Exactly. Are you just going to magnify all this or are you going to give us something good from it?
What's it called? I was reading something the other day about how when you're working your Jupiter placement deliciously, that's when all of your sort of benevolence gets bestowed upon you. That's a way to kind of unlock Jupiter in your life, is to take a snapshot of where you're at and then go to your birth chart and be like, wait a minute, what is my Jupiter? Like, how do I channel my Jupiter? How do I express my Jupiter? So it's interesting. I love this because I'm gonna.
Where's your Jupiter natally?
Scorpio, bitch. Scorpio. It's Sun, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, all conjunct, sitting right on top of each other in Scorpio in the third house.
And communicating these deep truths is what you're supposed to be doing.
I always thought it was like curse to want to talk about these things that you're not supposed to talk about. And then I was like, or I could just do it.
Exactly.
So I want to ask you, so I should say, just because I wanted to kiki with you because you're here, but I should just let everybody know that you are a very fierce medium. You are a wonderfully powerful healer. You are an incredible writer, an excellent writer. Reminds me of like some of my favorite like queer writers. John, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but John Reiche or Reiki, who wrote a bunch of really cool books about LA, like queerness in the 70s. But then like, you're also a very gifted medium and super plugged in, and all of that. You're still doing readings, right? Like, you're working privately with people? Yeah, good. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, mediums and I have like a long and weird history because I've been like weirdly, not crossed, but just kind of like broadly read by mediums in ways that were hurtful to me. So it's always been, it's like one of the things that I developed like much later in my psychic life to be like, okay, gotta fucking deal with this because grandma's showing up. So what am I going to do about it? But one of the things I love about you is like, you talk to all the spirits. You will talk to anybody who's coming through. And I really feel a kinship with you because I do feel like you bring that humanistic element of really thinking about the people that you work with and working with their lives and where they're at, and not just sort of throwing messages at people, but like applying what you get from, the world at large to your clients and to what they're going through.
Thank you for saying that. Like I always say, and I know you understand this as a healer, that, I don't do psychic or mediumship readings to give you information because, that's just data at the end of the day. It's how, with what I'm getting, can this, translate to healing for you, and leaving out the rest. Because you can get a lot of information, but you have to go to your higher power and be like, is this what they need to know or need to hear right now from me in this moment? And a lot of times it's no. So I'm not interested in showing off, like, being like the, Long Island medium of Wikipedia, all this data that you like, your sister, blah, 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 your dog, your pet. It's like, no, let's hone in on what you're actually really wanting. Like, what you're coming for a reason. You don't want a biography of your life. You want hope. You want inspiration. You want to be able to move past something.
Well, and I love this idea of talking to your higher power and checking it with yourself as the reader. But I also see readings as this opportunity and healings, this opportunity to, work with people to guide themselves into that state of awareness where you don't really have room for anything else. I just think a lot about, like, sometimes when I'm teaching or when I'm, because I've been was doing live stuff before quarantine, and you're on a roll, and I'm just like, and then someone's like pouring tears out of their face, and you're like, oh yeah, you'll be fine, like, But that's a great sign because that means that someone has connected with something that is true that you don't need to prove because they know it's true. And how do you know it, and how is it true?
Right. Exactly.
I think it's powerful. So I want to ask, with this and with this beautiful conversation about your higher power, and I would just love to know, like, I want to know how you got into the work, because we've talked about this stuff before, but like I want to process it now. How'd you get into the work? And tell us, I don't want to lead, but tell us as much as you're comfortable with about how you sort of got your connection to your higher power back.
Yes.
That's a fair question?
That's great.
Okay.
First, I want to say that the first time I met Mikey, we met at my place, and I felt like there was this person who saw the world in a similar way, who had all this wisdom that was like very complementary to what I was experiencing. And I just wanted to talk to you forever. And it was like, we were like, oh, it's been like 2 hours. Like, you're like, I gotta get going with do my stuff. But it was like immediate connection, and like, yeah, like you just have so much information and wisdom and clarity that is so needed.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I do want to say, I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot lately as I've been teaching more and working more really since COVID happened, and since George Floyd was killed and everything. It's like, I work as a channel. I identify as a channel. So channels can go insane if they're listening to what the voices are saying 24/7. But like, I've made a practice of turning that off whenever possible, so that when it's time to work, it's time to work. So in a space like the one that we were in, I just have to say, I really appreciate it, because I do my due diligence in my own body to stay in balance, but it ain't my wisdom, right? This is the stuff that I know you know this, but this is the stuff that we all have access to, that in doing a workshop or in getting a healer and getting a reading, it lets us know what our skills are and what they're fucking not. So what we don't have to pay attention to and we don't have to deal with. So,
right.
But I've just been really appreciating a lot lately that like channels will sometimes get a butt ton of information that they have no relationship to, or there's just like, because I remember that day, it was so chill at your house and it was like, oh, this is a cute idea. Let's talk about this. And I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. And then I look at you and see your mouth and you're like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. You know, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to detract from the question.
No, but tell us, how did you get into it? What's your path been like? How did you get here?
So, long story short, I grew up in an evangelical Christian household, which my parents did believe in the gifts of the spirit. And I was often like, my parents would come to me like starting at 8 on, asking me questions about the Bible, because they said I had the godly conscience of the family. And so I started, because I really, like, out of my whole family, I really did feel like, oh, there's something happening, and there's something bigger, and I'm communicating with it in whatever way. Mm-hmm. Then
even that young, at 8.
Even that young, like I was, mystical, fairies, all that. Like I just wanted to like live in the land of anything is possible, like my backyard, in nature. And I dreamed of like everything just being so mystical beyond my comprehension. And then I always relied back on my sense of God. And then, there was rough patch. I was disowned for being gay in high school. And then another rough patch, my alcoholism and addictions to drugs developed. I was homeless in Los Angeles for 6 months, had nothing to my name, just 2 hefty bags of things that I would guard with my life behind the back of the Palms, which was a lesbian gay bar back in the day. Wow. And, 6 months into that, 6 months of that, I was like, okay, I know I have talents and intelligence and, a purpose. What is wrong? So I started meditating in the basement of that dive bar by the liquor locker. Wow. Like not knowing what I was doing. Then 3 months passed. I meditated every day. I did this short little guided meditation. And I heard God's voice very clearly saying, you will not do anything you're meant to do or get anything you desire until you give up drinking and drugs. So a little over 8 years ago, I got sober. And for anybody that's familiar with the 12 steps, we have the concept of the higher power. And it's like, it can be anything you want. Like, choose your own, like find what works for you. So I found what worked for me, my higher power, and I just, boom, connection. And the most important step to me was step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to consciously like develop your connection with your higher power every day.
Wow.
And we are only as good as our spiritual fitness for that day. Mm-hmm. So I was really diligent about that. And then
very fair.
And I just started doing like licensure programs for spiritual counseling, certification programs. And then when I was doing spiritual counseling more, I was like, okay, I'm answering these people's questions with information they didn't give me. And they're starting to be like, how did you know this? Mm-hmm. And it didn't occur to me for the longest time that would be like mediumship or clairvoyance or claircognizance. Right. It was just kind of like, I don't even know what I thought of. Like, you know how mothers kind of just like know things? I'm like, maybe it was just like, I just had a sense. But yeah.
It's so interesting because it's you at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say before we get too far away from the family stuff, you're particularly fucked because you're born into a family that acknowledges these gifts mm-hmm. and then comes to you to get the good and then disowns you.
That was the irony. I was the one with the godly conscience. So when I stepped into my truth of what love was for me, apparently I didn't have the godly conscience anymore.
Wow. Oh my God. And I love how you say it here. I'm covered in bumps here. When I stepped into my truth of what love is for me, right? That's no good anymore. And yet that is every person's right, truly, to love God in the way that they choose, mm-hmm. right? And I also want to just say too, because I've never thought of it like this, but like every fucking spiritual teacher, spiritual leader, guru, Osho, fucking Keith Raniere should have been asking themselves, how am I today? I'm only as good as, how did you put it? Tell me that phrase.
Yeah, we only have a daily reprieve based on our spiritual fitness.
Right. Based on our spiritual fitness. It's literally like constantly check yourself.
Exactly.
Constantly check yourself and use the steps, go through your program, connect your higher power. I also just love that meditation is what's so beautiful too, because in that meditation time, you were able to get rid of all the other voices that said, nope, you don't get this. You can't do this. This isn't for you.
And I'll tell you the three things that were said in the meditation, which I use in variation today. It's a repetition of who am I? Mm-hmm. What do I want? How can I serve? Mm. And when you ask those three things, you better be ready to step up to your highest self, because the doors will come knocking.
It's beautiful. I just want to add it in here too for anybody watching. Like, this is a great reminder of those three things. Who am I? What do I want? And how do I serve? Right? They're a great way to sort of hack capitalist confinement and restriction.
For sure.
Because so many people spend all of their time feeding the capitalist machine and doing their work and doing all these things, and we don't have a better system. That's what we got to do still. But at the expense of asking those other questions, who am I? What do I actually want? And how do I serve? Right? So I think it's beautiful. I think it's just so beautiful. So I just wanted to say that for anybody who's frustrated or scared or freaked out, it doesn't mean you don't budget your fucking money. It doesn't mean you stop paying your rent. But you can't sacrifice your spiritual fitness just for what's expected of you, because you can't sustain that.
And I want to clarify the second, what do I want? Mm-hmm. This isn't law of attraction manifestation culture. It's what it is. What do I want? There's the things that you mentioned, the capitalistic ideals that we think will provide us with what we think we want. Mm-hmm. So what do I want? It might be better if you frame it as, what do I desire? Because desire is the catalyst for creation.
I was just hearing in my head, what do I desire to create?
Yes, exactly. That's what I was saying in my head. Telepath.
Amazing. What do I desire to create? Right, because you don't want to just be focusing on what you want or don't have. Because that can make you, that can end up reminding you of what you don't have. But
Right.
if you actually focus on on who you are, what you, well, now I'm hearing what you will to create, right? What you choose to create, and then how am I to serve?
Yeah.
It's so great. I guess that's why I had to stop, because it's like those three questions can bring you great peace and happiness.
Sure.
And I personally think open the road in such a way that make all sorts of other blessings and synchronicities come your way, as opposed
you are ahead of it. I was gonna say, I had stopped doing that after my second year sobriety. I started again a couple years ago. And then once I started that again, within 3 months, all the abilities amped up and got louder and louder and louder. And then people started to come out as mediums, like to me, without even knowing that I was doing this work. It was like, okay, I see you.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like mediumistically spun? I'm sure you've been energetically overwhelmed, but I'm saying, have you ever caught yourself being like, wow, my ego's gotten in too much. I sound like a fucking asshole. Like, I'm spun on myself. Like, have you ever caught yourself being like, ooh, I need to check my spiritual fitness?
So, for some reason, I think there's a lot of people who are psychic mediums who can do this work without the conscious contact with their higher power. For some reason, mine doesn't work unless I'm opening to God first. I say I'm a medium, but really, I ask God for permission to communicate. I'm like, God, is there anyone that you would have me talk to for this person? And it's almost like God is the medium and the intermediary.
Well, and God is love, so love is the fucking medium.
Exactly. And I'm like, so I don't deal with like these quote unquote dark entities or spirits or whatever, because I'm like, I'm going to source.
Right.
I'm going to source. And it doesn't work. And I know when I'm off, because nothing comes, and I'll just be like, I'll postpone a reading for like an hour. I'm like, do you mind if I postpone an hour? Because I need to sit and get right.
Get right.
Or I can't offer anything.
It reminds me too, Brandon, what you're talking about is like the sort of micro shade of the spiritualist church. I don't know if you've ever gone to a spiritualist like church experience.
No, but yeah.
It's so intense, because if you've ever touched a tarot card, if you do anything but go directly to God and get that good information, then you don't get to play. You know, right. So a big part of my healing, having been baptized Greek Orthodox, was reading this mystic who took a lot of the stuff that you and I talk about all the time and framed it within a kind of Christian context. But what I love about what it sounds like you're describing here is that no matter what anybody said to you, no matter what you are supposed to do or not supposed to do, you were like, I'm good. Once you got right with yourself, you were like, I'm good. Hear this voice.
Aries North Node. It's like, your way won't work for me, even if I wanted it to. Right. So I have to like pave a new way, but it's in the 11th house. So I have to make sure that I'm being a leader among the people and a leader among leaders.
It's what's so cool too, because it's like yeah, I just love it. So tell me more about that. How are you now? I know you have some classes coming up. Registration closed today for the one, right?
Yeah, it closed today.
So excited! But other classes coming up.
It's my first official like course mini challenge. That's like a live thing. That's amazing. What I was getting a lot, because this was not my like, I didn't think it was like my calling, but something kept saying like sacred sexuality, and there's an amazing mystic author, Andrew Harvey, who I had the pleasure of getting to know in the summer. And he's like he's the real deal. He grew up in India. He studied Tantra, like the spiritual meaning of like Tantra, and he was an Oxford scholar. And it's like, but he he wrote Gay Mysticism. And
Oh,
it was
cool.
that book, I reached out to him right away, and something said to me, I'm like, okay, even if it's like, I'm like, what am I getting a lot? Like, whether I like it or not, 90% of my clients are gay men.
Mhm.
So I do a lot of self-worth, self-love, self-esteem work with them. And it's like, I wanted to create a course where it's called Sacred Sexuality for Gay Men, Mind, Body, Spirit, for basically intimacy and connection with other men.
So
And
I want
what
to show.
it-
I just want to share one thing really quick while I'm time.
Woo!
Show everybody the aesthetic, the body, the quartz crystal getting very personal with you.
Yes.
It's so good, and this is I just feel like there's so much power and healing in this image alone because I know you're the real deal.
Thank
You
you.
know, so I'm obsessed with that because I know you're not. I know you could, girl, with those abs, you could flex for the gram all you want,
Yeah.
but I just think it's beautiful that now you're offering this thing about intimacy and connection. And so maybe you can tell me without giving too much away, what is the connection as you see it now for you between sex and spirituality and intimacy and that stuff, if it's not giving too much away.
So I really believe that it is my responsibility to bless any relationship, no matter the duration or the intensity, before it happens. So if I'm hooking up with a guy, like before he gets over, bless the experience, ask that the relationship be held up to its highest potential. And then when we leave, we because we always take parts of each other with us when we separate, so that we get the good parts. We get to hold on to good parts. And then, bless, like ask God, your higher power, divinity, into the bedroom every time you're intimate. Because we need to like obliterate shame from the gay community.
I love that. And it reminds me, I was thinking, I said this is one lesbian friend of mine where it was just like, who's also from Michigan, but it was just like, what the fuck? Like, what if the power of Christ is so real that the biggest scam is that it's just actually all this shame that's preventing us from invoking God and the angels and the saints and this and that and the other thing? It's like, can you separate, an entity from a dogma? The thing about Christ is like, Christ is the soul in all of us. It's Krishna. It's Christ has many different faces and many different forms. So I always say, and I love this because this is what you did, man. Develop your relationship with spirit and then go from fucking there,
Yeah.
But I love the idea of bringing God into the gay bedroom, right? Like, oh, that feels so good because it's a reclamation of power and a dismissal of shame. And it just says, we get to do this.
Because whether we like it or not, sex and intimacy is an act of creation. So it is up to you what you create from that experience. Will I create more like desire and quicker fixes, or will I create something like beautiful in a moment that can live on for a memory? And I remember that person. I remember that small talk we had. I remember how they made me feel, or I just feel like I was blessed by that person's touch in that moment. And it's like, because in that moment, that's the eternity. That the coming together is the eternity.
So beautiful. And it's also, it sounds like there's sometimes it like hookup culture hurts the heart because people can treat each other very disposably, and it's no tea, no shade. It's fine. It's been going on for a long time, but like, is it intimate? It's going to be different every time. Like you can have a totally random hookup that is incredibly intimate and real and deep. But I just love that, the idea of blessing the path before you and blessing the connection and blessing the relationship, no matter how long or how serious or how much people want to get married or have kids or just like rim each other. You know, it's
exactly, because
so beautiful.
all relationships at the level of the body are temporary anyways, no matter if it's a lifelong love or a one-night stand. So what we're doing in that communion with somebody else matters just as much as what we would do with a lifelong partner. Right. It's who we're being to those people. And it's for me, I came to the realization based on a phrase I heard that said, you know, around rejection and like, you know, expectations. The only thing that can be missing from a situation is that which I'm unwilling to bring to it. Mm. So if I felt, you know, lonely or sad or discarded, where did I forget to bring the value and the worth and the love?
Right. Oh man, it's so healing, so deep, and so I'm feeling underneath all of this, you're just constantly reminding everyone of that thing we've heard in Cosmo forever, right? You're not a half, you're not a fragment, you're a whole being, and you're going to bring yourself together with another whole being, and those beings are going to come together and they're going to create something. It's literally becomes an act of God.
Yeah. We're all total holograms of source. Mm-hmm. We just forgot about it. And your friend and you were so right. Shame is the lowest emotion on the consciousness scale. So what happens if there's transcendence up here, shame down here? As soon as we have shame, we sink back into the gravity of our physical nature and we forget who we are.
You know, this person that we had when we were doing these as moon zooms, an amazing healer in SoCal named Roseanne Grace. She did this awesome work, QHHT, that you may have heard of, but it was very cool. And she did part of the work is going through and being like, how many lifetimes has this person spent believing that God is outside of themselves? It's like, cool, check. Like, let's cross that out. So, sweetie, not true. You know?
I love that.
I just think it's so beautiful that you're creating this way of interacting for men and for gay men to experience wholeness and intimacy and connection without like telling them what to do or what not to do, without more fucking dogma, really beautiful.
So back to full sovereignty. You are the own governor of your soul's path. And the more we realize that, the healthier and happier we'll be.
Well, that one Greek mystic that I was telling you about too, from back in the day, talked about how one of the qualities of the divine was divine self-sufficiency. So the divine has everything it needs. And if you are part of that divine, then at least some part of you has everything you need. Exactly. So really you're never showing up to the party empty-handed. You might just have to be a little more creative with what you're bringing to the table. Okay, so I actually want to ask you, so you're doing this, I'm gonna start sharing your AuraPics so I can start drawing it and talking to you about it. But so you work with, tell me about House of Mystics and tell me about, just tell me about more of the stuff that you have coming up.
Cool. Yeah, so House of Mystics is the overarching group that I have. It's an online site and you can sign up to hear more about it. What we're doing is we're creating a platform for emerging holistic healers and spiritual practitioners. So that's energy workers, spiritual healers, mediums, psychics, tarot readers, anyone who does divination, astrology. And I'm creating courses leading up to Spiritual Superhero Academy, which is going to be the main offering, which is going to be a certification course for 4 main areas of mysticism, which I consider consciousness work, extrasensory perception work, healing work, and mediumship or channeling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's the
open to everyone, especially anyone who feels like they're on the fringe of society. Ooh, This is the place for you because you are not on the fringe because you are less than. You're on the fringe because you are the vanguard and the person who notices what's up first.
Amazing.
That's amazing. I'm already like getting teary-eyed.
Well, all of the intention's been put into this for it to be healing and supportive and useful, because this is the portion of our program where we get to do your AuraPic, where we get to bring some healing to you that you get to bring to so many people. So what's fun is we're doing this live right now. So what's great about this is that this color yellow is showing up very much around the outside of your aura as thought bubbles, as plumage. It's sure, it's gold, it's golden, so there is celestialness about this, but we're really talking yellow here, which in this AuraPics practice has to do with conflict through, learning through conflict, learning through collision, learning through, chemical reaction, as opposed to learning through meditation, which is a different kind of chemical reaction, but learning through vibration or theory. So indigo blue in this process is learning through theory. This kind of yellow is learning through practice, learning through challenge. Awesome. It's showing up all around the outside of your aura, well up into your upper chakras. I don't do this on purpose. It's touching your crown. So that definitely tells us where it's anchored. And it's this brush that I like to use. I thought I was using another one, but this is the one that magically came up. So this is what we have to give you. It's about structures. And so this tells us that you're in a moment of literally testing the structures of your spiritual awareness at its sort of thickest with 3 C's, right? And I think it's a great idea to, just because, we started the show talking about Mercury and Mars retrograde, I would say probably your aura doesn't want to look like this after November 13th. Definitely, after November 3rd, but then definitely after November 13th.
Sure.
It wants to be kind of gelled, right? It wants to kind of emerge into a nice, balanced, harmonious, locked and loaded state, okay? I see that's what's coming. Oh, thank you, Spirit. So we're allowed to put in some little green. That is what's coming in. And it's a beautiful, true emerald heart chakra green. A little lighter, which is giving us some, just some of those spiritual frequencies. Yeah, okay, that's the one. Again, it's like, nope, not moving. That's the one you're using. Okay, and so we're gonna put some green there. This tends to have to do also with nature spirits when they're showing up like this. So this is actually telling us that there are some spirits in nature that are kind of like waiting for you to visit them. That I'm getting a feeling like you haven't really been paying homage to certain natural spirits that miss you and that want you to go visit them. And I also just feel like this is a great example of bringing in that natural energy will help the sort of hotness of your outer aura that we're seeing here, the conflict, the intensity of the conflict. It will just help to soothe it, help to zero out your calculator, because in a weird way, this isn't spiritual work. This is very mental work using your spiritual body. You're having to figure out how to kind of crash your spiritual body up against the world, really, at large. So let's see what else is coming in. Oh, I love this. You're getting like a gorgeous kind of pink corset vibe that is showing along the lower centers. So this is talking about all the spirits that are not eager for you to come visit them because they're with you, they're connected with you, they're very much here. I love how filament thin this is, but how it's radiating your hands and low-key the rest of your aura. This is the color of guides, of angels, of ancestors, and they're really showing up around not as much the feet as it is the lower center. So funnily enough, they're saying like, you will understand this more than, I'm like, what's the fucking word? Isometric. These are isometric spirits. They're helping to stabilize your path. So you just keep walking forward. I think this is really a message that like you have a lot more trial and error to do between now and the 13th. So like talk to a lot of people, show stuff to people that you trust, get second, third, fourth opinions, because it really feels like thank you, Spirit. We got to go to the core now. Oh my God, I wasn't expecting this. So I love how this is. This is going to be, here's where the indigo blue is. Indigo blue, the theory,
my favorite,
is so deeply anchored in your guts.
my favorite.
This is literally telling us that everything is motivated by this indigo. And we want to make it darker. Yeah, it's like your core is full of the wisdom. There's no apologizing for this. There's no need to apologize for anything, but there is both faith and work required to get it out. So I do think, I wouldn't be surprised, my love. I believe you when you say this, but I wouldn't be surprised if you have like a flop sweat moment or a stage fright moment, because there's this same, no, it's not actually the same yellow. It's a yellow greenish. Let's see, that's not gonna do this one. This one will do. Yeah, perfect. This sort of buttery yellow greenish that is this energy wanting to come up and out. Oh, and it's around, it's funny, it's around speaking, but I know you're not like scared of speaking.
No, public speaking is my number one fear. People don't realize that.
I like never.
I know. I can't do it. I mean, I have to do it, like just give talks in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, I just keep trying to like postpone it. But no, it's my big.
This is what's up. So the theory here is to remember even what we were talking about at the beginning. Like, this is not your wisdom. This is the wisdom of the teacher. Yeah. And instead of I don't like public speaking, this looks like someone who wants to do. Oh my God, this looks like someone who wants to do the word of God justice.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's not going to trigger you at all. That has nothing to do with Mercury Retrograde in Scorpio.
I'm like, oh. I mean, that's it. It's like, I know I can do, like, communicate it, but I'm like, I can't communicate what is ultimately needed. Like, I'm not that, But
this is what's beautiful about communicating within duration is that you only have so much time to communicate. You're going to be teaching the material that you're developing now for ages.
Yeah.
So there's it's almost like I'm seeing almost like debate club, like mock trial, where you got to rehearse a little bit and spitball a little bit, like pitch meetings, right? Where you pitch like your elevator pitch, but this is more highbrow than an elevator pitch. This is actually working through the central themes of things and the big picture ideas of things, and literally like shooting holes in things so that you've created a container for this blue, this indigo, to emerge from your crystal clear, aquamarine blue throat, for it to emerge clearly. It's like, don't worry about the throat of it all. Focus on the teaching. You got to get the teaching out. So just make sure that the space that it emerges into has been sort of bullet pointed sufficiently so that if you have to adapt, you adapt and you move on. But then also just so that you trust that you've done your due diligence, that you are as prepared as you can to ultimately just kind of go there to ultimately talk in tongues. You don't get
for sure.
Comes out.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, Spirit. I mean, anything else? Yeah, no, I'll just say they give it because it's red. And red is just bringing, oh, good. Thank you. It's a rusty red. So that's a little less severe than I was, typically think of red. But it's sort of showing up, just saying, yeah, remember you need to be grounded at all times. Don't forget.
I'm all fire and air, so I need that.
Perfect. And that's what I love is it's red, but it's this very rusty, earthy terracotta red, which is like fiery earth. So it really just says like, maybe there is even just a reinvigorated and like simpler grounding practice that you can do. Yeah. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to add this on because this is a lot of action. All this yellow is fiery stuff, So I would just say, I wanted to open this one. Hold on. There we go. So yeah, so it's like the yellow is all fire, the pink is all spirit, the blue is all spirit, and this is very much fire that wants to come up out of your guts. Oh, that's why they're not letting me move on. Faith, right? Faith and work. So faith that it moving through your heart is the best thing in the world, that whatever you're teaching, however it's coming out, you're going to be able to slow-mo because you're so deliciously grounded and be like, oh, wow, that's how it's coming out. That's how it's coming out today. Yeah, the spirits around us are like, yeah, she knows. She's got it. I'm just saying, in this case, it's beautiful because, you know, my channel heart wants to go to you and say, you know what? For someone with the intensity of gifts that you have, like these hearing the voice of God gifts, channeling is slower.
Yeah.
And people forget that, I think, all the time, that it actually isn't as direct, that there's almost like I'm running right now between the Zoom and the YouTube, there's like a 3-second delay.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if you just know what you're up against, know that you've done so much good work and are so deserving of these words moving through you, because they're not your words, they're just moving through you, then you don't get it twisted. It's not about you doing the words justice. It's about you stewarding the words into manifestation, right?
Yeah. That's been like the whole shebang. This whole COVID is just like, just speak, say the truth, share. It's like, it's so funny. It keeps coming up.
That's so good. Well, my angel, we are at the very end of our hour here, so I just want to finish with a couple questions. Just one last question. This week for you, what has brought you yumminess? What is something from this earthly plane that has lifted you up and out and just made you feel so supremely, deliciously divine?
So this week it's been my partner, Alfie, and he's an earthy person. So it's like the tangible things are just in place for me. He like provides me supplements and like gives me healing and touch. And it's so like, he's very grounding, and it's been very important because you're so right. All I felt was like yellow all around, like, ooh, ecstatic, like so much. And you said it perfectly, where I was trying to like put a framework of mental activity with the spiritual like embodiment. And it's like, it doesn't always need to fit there.
No, and yet there is a certain amount of trial and error and doing dry runs and shooting holes in things, so that your heart then gets to the point where it's like, I actually can't make all this fit. This is enough. This is enough of a context for me to riff and channel and let spirit speak.
Yeah.
You know? Beautiful. I love that. That's so sweet. And just off of what you were saying too, I know that there are people who don't have a deliciously earthy partner making them these things. And I think it's a great moment, Mercury Retrograde in Scorpio, soon to be in Libra, to look at your feelings. Look at what this moment is triggering in you. If you heard that and are like, where's my boo to make me supplements? Sure. Love on that aspect of yourself, so that you give a little time and attention to the part of you that can take care of yourself. Right? Wow. I don't know why. Maybe someone needs to hear that, but that's just true.
Sure.
Let's see. Well, really, yeah, I'm very, very, very blessed to be in this new house that is very far away from New York City, but still in New York State.
Okay.
And I've just been having this deep, deep appreciation for the cycles of the seasons and the cycles of time, because autumn is autumn here. And I know that's harder for Angelinos to necessarily see, especially with the environment in such an uproar. But there are still signs that you know, I'm getting dick whipped with the signs of fall up here. But even if you're not watching yellow leaves fall, this is a moment. This is a moment of transition. Scorpio season is a sign of death. So, you know, to look at whatever you have around you that reminds you of what's going on. P.S. We've been able to see Mars in the sky for a minute, right? And the full moon on Halloween, when the veils are very thin, That's why we love to talk about sun and moon astrology, because they're so visible, so tangible, and they orient us to like a clock that is not manufactured, that's actually authentic and in harmony and mathematically sound and in alignment. But what's so dope about that is that it drops you into your body so wonderfully that, like you, Angel Brandon, sitting in the basement of the Palms meditating, you slowed down enough that you were able to start back up again.
Yep.
Right? And that when you get as deeply into your body as possible, you suddenly realize that you're a spirit and that you can transcend it all, and that no fucking addiction is going to rule your life for the rest of your life, you know, and that intimacy is possible when I reject shame. It's possible before you reject shame completely, but it's even more possible when you are in your body, feeling your oats.
Well, what happens when you reject shame?
On God!
When you reject shame completely, once you're at that point, you heal other people's shame. Like, it's no longer even about you, because you're just like giving it.
Talking to you today makes me want to have like a nitty gritty queer spiritual religion conversation at some point, and really pound this shit out, because I feel like so many people, especially older gays, right, suffer so much because the behaviors and habits and beliefs were so deeply internalized, and then fucking AIDS happens, you know? So it's like, so there's I know it's so much of the work that you do is bringing such healing to the queer community. So everybody who's watching, you got to check out, you missed the Sacred Sexuality Challenge. Registration, she's booked, honey. Stay tuned for the Spiritual Superhero Academy and your Design Your Divine Blueprint 2021. You can find out more about all this stuff at houseofmystics.com. Brandon is at Brandon Kneefel on Instagram, Kneefel. All these links will be in the Edible Spirit bio on Instagram and in the YouTube comments and such. Thank you, my angel. Thank you so much.
That was, I mean, you just, everything about you like is just enchanting. So thank you. Like, I forget that I miss conversations and connections like these, because I feel it's very rare that I feel filled up after talking to someone these days. And my cup is overflowing after I talk to you. You just pour it out for everyone. So thank you.
That means a lot. I hold nothing back. It's all for you. Why? Because you are so delicious.
Y'all so delicious.
So that's the Edible Spirit Hour. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We shall see you. This is Mikey and Brandon, and we shall see you next time. Let's just get our little outro, and
The Edible Spirit Hour.
Before the next exercise.